Hello, Beth and viewers. This video is coming at you from my kitchen. Still looking for a new camera location, and I'm cooking some pasta. Watched pot never boils. So I'm not watching the pot, I'm watching the camera. The camera's watching the pot. So does that mean that I'm watching the pot by like association? Today's video is going to be about September 11th. I know it was yesterday, but I still have some thoughts I'd like to share with you guys. Yesterday I came across a blog post from a blog called The Unpopular Opinion, so I guess it was fitting, but it was a young teenage girl. The premise of her post, which I will link down below, was all about how people need to stop focusing on 9/11 because there's other things going on in the world. And what strikes me as odd about this was that she included in the argument that she was young and that she doesn't really remember much about it when it happened. Now, it only happened 12 years ago, and I know 12 years ago sounds like a lot because 12 years is a long time, but not in the sense of national tragedy. I'm going to make the argument that 9/11 is still very much relevant 12 years later. The day that it happened, nearly 3,000 people were killed. The repercussions of that action are still being felt today. Right off the bat, I can tell you that this girl is not from New York. I'm from New York, I live on Long Island, so does Beth, and it is very close to us. This event was very real for us, and we felt the fear on that day. I remember coming home from school terrified that something else was going to happen, that another plane was going to drop, and like they were going to do something to us, because I lived that close to the city. And there were so many people that my family and friends were worried about, that we thought were dead because we could not get in contact with them. I think for many of us, it was the first time that we had ever experienced something so violent on our own soil. I know we hear a lot about violent acts in other countries and wars and things like that. For the most part in America, like, we've never experienced that. And we are lucky that we've never experienced that. And this is the first time that, for at least my generation, that we saw that firsthand. My next point is that this girl must not be from New York because she doesn't see the ripple effects of what 9/11 really means for us as a country. First, I'm going to talk about the impact. One, families were impacted. There are 3,000 people died. When you think about the amount of people in your family, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4, times that number by 3,000. There was people affected by this. A lot of people affected by this. A lot of increased security measures, especially in airports. I don't know if you've ever been through security at JFK, but it's not too easy. You have to do a lot of safety precautions before you get on the airplane. And when you go to New York City, there's still police everywhere. I was 9 when 9/11 happened, and I was not allowed to go on a field trip for several years after 9/11. They had these warnings, I forget what they're called, but like if we had an orange warning, we weren't allowed to go on a field trip. If you had a yellow warning, I think they were terror warnings. I think there was something that President Bush came up with. We couldn't go on field trips. I didn't go on a field trip again till I was maybe 13 or 14 at the end of middle school. A war happened. 9/11 caused a war. Whether you agree with the war or not, it's still happening. And that's something that impacted us and still impacts us today and still very much relevant. It literally has changed the lifestyle in New York City. New York City today in 2013 is not the same New York City it was September 10th, 2001. There is a different feeling, and anybody who lives in New York City in the past 12 years can tell you that. This is something that you wouldn't automatically think of, but it's still very much relevant, is the way Americans view Muslims. For the longest time, anybody who looked remotely Indian or had a turban, or this is still happening, they would get called out. And people would either penalize them, persecute them, they get checked at security checkpoints because people think they're terrorists. The Al-Qaeda, who planned 9/11, were those people. That doesn't mean that every person who looks like them, may have the same religious beliefs as them, is a terrorist. And they're not terrorists. They are normal people. You have to think about the social impact of 9/11, and that it's created this new form of racism in our country, which is not good. One of the arguments in this girl's entry was she was sick of seeing the media circus that had popped up every September 11th on the news. She thought people should be over it by now. One, she dismissed 3,000 deaths. No matter one person died or 3,000 people died, you cannot diminish the pain it feels when someone's life is taken. Think about it this way. She said that it's strange that we still have a media skeptical, and we're still, commemorating them 12 years later. It's weird to her. We still celebrate the 4th of July. Do you understand what we're celebrating on the 4th of July? We're celebrating our split from the Brits. I think it's crazy. That happened in 1776. It's 2013. We still celebrate the 4th of July. We celebrate President's Day. We celebrate Martin Luther King Day. There's so many things we celebrate. So why can't we commemorate? Even though it's sad and depressing, I understand people shy away from those two things, but we still need to remember. So things like this won't happen again. So that begs the question, why can we celebrate things and not commemorate them? People aren't comfortable with it, but it's a necessary fact of life. One last thought I'd like to bring up in this video is kind of a jarring thought, actually. We were young when the attacks happened, maybe 3, 4, 5. I don't really know the age of coherence and remembering what happened. And anyone born, after 2001, they've never known a world that wasn't post 9/11. And to me, the world is so different from what it was before. So many things have changed, and it may have been a slight change, but it's a change. And they've never known a world without September 11th happening. Now, I'm not a sociologist. I'm not a political expert. I am not really up to date what's happening in the wars. But what I can surmise is just being a regular citizen of the United States who grew up with half their life in pre-9/11 and half their life in post-9/11. The world is a very different place, and 9/11 has a lot to do with that. That is why 9/11 is still very much relevant 12 years later. I'm sorry that I got a little serious and political on you guys. It's just, that post really upset me, and I could get angry and just rant for 20 minutes, but I really wanted to educate and give you guys give you guys something to think about, honestly. I don't want to tell anyone what's right or wrong, maybe it isn't relevant anymore, but I personally think it's relevant, and those were the reasons why I still think it's relevant. And I want everyone watching this video to think about it and really think about what the world was like before 9/11 and what it was like after 9/11. And see if you can identify with what I'm saying. Beth, viewers, I hope I gave you guys something to think about. If you have any comments, leave them down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this subject. And as always, don't forget to be awesome.